Hello guys, and you're welcome. So what we're going to be doing right now is to create our project, but to do that we need the assets that contain the artwork. Now while this is going to be the GitHub link for the complete project, you might want to just extract the piece of art and follow along. So the first thing you'll do is to go over here to this link. I provided the link in the YouTube video description, so you can click on that and come over here and go to code and click download zip. So once you've downloaded this, let me just go ahead and go to my downloads folder. Right here you can see you'll have a signal assets -main.zip. So right click on that and go to extract all. This should open up a signal assets.main where you actually have the zip file. Right click and extract all, and you should have a folder called signal. This contains the complete Godot project, and I'm interested in this art folder where I have the coins, the player character, and the slime enemy. I also have these single coins. So the next thing we're going to do is to open up Godot and create this project fresh. So I'll click on Godot and I'll just maximize this and click on a new project. I'll just call that signal tut, and right here I'm going to go to my browse and go to Godot projects and create a new folder. I'll call that signal_tut and click OK and click select current folder so we don't have any conflicts, and I'll just click create and edit while leaving this on compatibility mode. So I'll just click create and edit and we should be good to go on a new and fresh project. So the first thing I'll do is just quickly create an art folder and drag in our art assets. So I'll right click on the resource folder, click on folder, I'll call this art and hit OK. And what I'll do is just go to that folder that's open. I'll click on this coin, the player, and the slime enemy. Can minimize this window and just drag this into the art folder like so. So if we open this up, we have our coin, our player on animation, sprite sheets rather, and our slime sprite sheet. That's super duper awesome. And also what I quickly like to do is go to the project and go to project settings, and right here where it says on the rendering, I'll set this to nearest, and also under the window I'll just maximize this a bit and I'll set this to a retro style. So I'll do a 640 by 480 resolution, and on my advanced settings I can actually override this and set the window width override and window height override. I'll just try 1280 by 720, and also right here on my stretch mode, so I'm just going to look for stretch. I'll just set this to canvas items and I'll leave everything by default. I'll just close that, and basically what that is going to do, if we play it, we don't actually have a scene yet. So let's create our basic our first scene where we'll use to run everything on the project. So the first thing I want to create is the main scene, which is going to be in Node 2D. So I'll click on this and we already have our super main scene. So I'll double click on this and I'll call this our main scene. And what I'll do is to create a folder under the resources. So I'll right click, create new, click on folder, and I'll call this scenes, hit OK. And then what I'll do is to save my scene. I'm going to call it main and save it in the scenes folder, just so we actually have a basic and a simple main scene. So what are we going to do right now? So let's start creating a script, and then we can use that script to basically code these signals. So let's start by actually attaching a button to our main scene, just for an example. So let's click on this plus icon to add a child node, and let's search for a button, and I'll just quickly look for just a default button, nothing super fancy, and I'll just drag this button to make it large. over here at the text, I'll set the size of this. I'll set a text rather, and just say click me. And with that button selected over here, let's go over to the node properties, and we can actually see something here called pressed. If we double click on this and click on the button, so let's go to main. It says does not contain any script. So what we need to do first is to create a script. So I'm going to go to my main, and right here I'm going to attach a script right here, and I'll just leave this in a, let's create a folder for our scripts. So I'll make sure I go up one folder location, click on create folder, and I'll call that scripts, and click OK, and click open. So this is going to be our main script right here. So I'll go back to the button and make sure I'm on 2D here to my scene, and here I'll just double click on the signal and connect it to the main. So you need to have a script at least to connect this to your actual main scene. And what I'm going to do is to just send in information when this button is pressed. So I'm simply going to print button pressed, like so. And basically what happens is, if you look at the node section, we can see under the pressed we have a green icon that shows an arrow pointing to the right. We also have it here. It means this signal has been connected. This is the automatic way of connecting signals. So if we play our scene right now and we select the main scene as the current scene, we should have a button, and if we click this button we can actually see button pressed right here, and I'm pressing that again and we're having instances of this button pressed. So that's one way we can create signals in Godot. So right over here, what we're going to do is to actually head over and see how we can create other signals. So first, let's create our signal. To create a signal using code, you'll type in the name signal. So let's say signal, and then you type in the name of that signal. So I'm just going to say first underscore signal. So this is our first signal right here, and we don't have any issues. So in our ready function, what I want to do is to connect our first signal. So here I would say underscore ready, and let's not forget the func underscore ready, like so. And I'm going to connect. And to connect a signal, you pass in the name of the signal as a string. So I'm just going to say first signal and use a comma, and then I'll pass in a callable, and then I'll pass that callable to self, and I'll create a function. So I'm going to call this function underscore greeting, and it's actually customary to use a underscore when you're creating functions that are going to be called by a signal, just like we have here when we created this automatic signal for the button. This function got called. So the next thing I'm going to do is to create this function greeting. So I'm just going to say func underscore greeting, and simply all I'm going to do is to just say let's print the word aloha. And now that we have that, what we're also going to do is to emit this signal. And the way to do that is just do a simple first signal dot emit. So I'm just going to over here, and I'll just type the name of the signal first underscore signal dot emit. So whenever this function is emitted, what it's going to do is to look for a function called greeting, and it's going to call that signal. And basically I'm putting this in the ready method, so whenever the script is ready, this is going to be called. So let's save this, let's press play, and whenever the signal script is ready, we can actually see the greeting over here. aloha gets called. And when we click the button, we can actually see button is pressed. So this is just running the signal when this node is ready. So basically that's just what I want you to actually take from this one. So how can we use this, right? How can we actually use this function here? So what we can also do is to call a signal when a key is pressed. For example, if I press the accept key or the return key or the enter key, I want to actually call a signal. I want to emit this signal. And let's see how we can do that. So next, I'm going to create a function. I'm just going to say func. I'll just say signal underscore from underscore key underscore press, like so. So I have a function called signal underscore key press. I'm going to check if I'm pressing the return key. So if input dot is action pressed, I'm just going to use this action pressed, and I'm going to say the UI underscore accept. That's the Godot function for the accept key. I'm going to emit that first signal. So first signal dot emit, like so. And again, I'm getting this from the input. So if I click on the project, go to project settings and go to the input map and click on these built-in icons, we can actually see our UI left, right, down, and we also have our UI accept right here. So I'll just quickly close that. That's where this UI accept is coming from. So let's quickly test the scene. And now if I hit the enter key, I'll just go over here and hit the accept button. It is not being called, so I guess there's a problem somewhere. Okay, so I'll just debug that real quick. Okay, so it's actually sending this. It's if I press the return key, rather, it's telling me UI, it's calling this signal if I press the return key. So it's actually working super fine. Also, we can call the functions, or we can call this from another scene. So let me actually show you how you can do that. So let's create a separate scene here, and I'll go to other node and I'll look for a marker, and this is a simple marker 2D, like so. And what I'm going to do is to attach a script to my marker. So I'll just go ahead and attach the script here, and I'll just call this, I'll leave this, let's just say marker underscore test, and I'll just attach this called marker underscore test. And basically what I want to do is to access the function, or to access the signal from our main scene. All right, so to do that, I'm going to have a reference to my main scene. So I'll say at I'll use on ready, just to make sure I can accept this, access this when it's ready, and create a variable. I'll call it our main underscore scene, and this is going to be equal to, and I need to access my main scene. So I'll just go over here, or rather I'll go over here and then click on here where I have this script. I'll just go over here to my marker script, and I want to drag my main scene here. Okay, I'm having a problem here because it's saying that, let's see, I can use the dollar symbol, like so. So I'm actually having an error here. I don't know why or what's happening or why that's getting stuck. So I just want to use the dollar symbol. Okay, good. So I don't know, my Godot is acting funny today, and I'll actually have access to the main root node. So I'll click over here, do this, and use 2 dots. And the reason why that's not working is because let's go ahead and save our scene. So I'll save this, and this is going to be our marker.tscn. So that's why, really sorry guys, that's why it was not working, because I haven't saved that scene yet. Apparently what I wanted to do was to go to my main file here, and while I'm in my marker scene, I just want to drag the main scene and place it here. Okay, I think it depends on the position. I have this. So let's clear that and see if we can get rid of that bug. So we have this in our scenes. We have the main and the marker scene. And in the marker test scene, I want to drag the main Godot file. It says can't drop nodes because script map is not used in this scene. Oh, okay. So again, here's why it's not working. I need to instantiate a child of this marker scene on this scene. So to do that, I'm going to click on this chain icon and then click on the marker scene and click open. And I believe it should reference now. It should work. So I'll drag my main scene and drop it here. And it doesn't have any issues right now, which means that's actually working. So we have to instantiate a child of the marker scene in our main scene. Really sorry about that. So let's just let's go ahead. So now that I've actually had this in my ready function, so I'm going to say func_ready. What I'm going to do is to now get the signal from my main scene. I'm basically going to emit that signal. So I'm just going to say main_scene dot emit signal, and the signal I want to emit is called the first signal, like so. So I'm going to emit my first signal, and when it emits that signal, I'm going to, we should see aloha here, but I'll just go ahead and add a print statement and say signal from the main script running. So that signal is going to be running here. So let's save this and let's play our scene. So we actually have this word here, signal from the main script running, and we have aloha. So it means this is also being called from this scene right here. So again, how do we use this in our games? How do we use this signal in our program, in our games? So to do that, let's go ahead and begin building our scenes we're actually going to be using for this example. So the first thing I'm going to do is to build a character and area 2D node. So here, I'll just go ahead and click the scene and go under other node. So click on other node and I'll search for an area 2D. And this actually helps us detect or check whether an object is entering or colliding with this object here. And I'm going to quickly change that to the player. So this is going to be our player node. Now the area 2D is complaining because I haven't attached any root node like an animation node, so you can't see anything. So I'll attach a child node and I'll search for the animated sprite 2D here. And for the animated sprite 2D, what I'll do is go over to animation, click on empty, and click on new frames, and click on frames, and click hide frames from sprite-sheets, and I'm going to go to my art, and I'll click on my run.png and click open. And what I'm going to do is to set the size of this animation right here. So I'll just go ahead and increase this so we can see the size. So I think for the horizontal, I can set it to, let's set it to 1 by 1. And for the vertical, I believe we can set this to, sorry, this is 1. I'll just get rid of that. So I think this is 4. Sorry guys, I actually created this artwork, but I don't remember the size of this piece of art. But here it's, I believe it's a 96 by 96 size sprite. I believe that's the size of the sprite, but we can always go ahead and see how we kind of like split that object like so. So one quick way to check how we can slice this without making guesses like so, let's just close that. Let's look at the art and click on the run animation. So it's a 192 by 32. So if we divide, I'll just do Windows R and bring in my calculator. So I'll do 192 divided by 32, because I believe it's a 32-bit pixel. So I think it tells me 6 here. So let's go ahead and just bring that image again. So I think I can use 6 here. So it's 6 because that's how you can just quickly find out this. So now that we've set this to 6, let's pick a few frames for the animation. I'll just pick the entire frames and add these 6 frames for the animation. And once I drag my character here and play this, I can just rename this and call it run. And let's play this. So it's actually running very slow. So I'll set the frames per second to like 12. And we have a nice fast moving character right here. So we're not clear out of the water yet, because, and we can set this as the autoplay on load. So this is going to be our default animation. So we need to also set a collision shape for this object. So to do that, let's go ahead and still add a collision shape 2D. And now that we have that collision shape, we need to create the shape. So I'll just create a capsule and just drag the capsule for the capsule to fit this object like so, just so we can detect that collision right here. All right, like so. So we could just save that, and I'll just save this in the scenes folder and save this as the player.tscn scene. And let's add this over here, not as a child of the animated sprite, but now we can actually set this here. So we actually have our collision for our super duper player sprite all set up. So what we're going to do is to quickly do the same for our coin and our enemy. So here we have our player scene. Let's go ahead and create a coin scene. So I'm going to do a quick area 2D to create this area 2D node. And I'm going to call that our coin. So I'm going to also add an animated sprite 2D and click on that. And for the animation, we're going to create new sprite frames. Click on the sprite frames and then bring the frames in for the coin. And again, so this is 24 by 4. So let's slide this to 1. And let's try 6. So I think 6 by 1 is a good slice. And let's select all these frames and add these 6 frames for the coin. And let's set this as the default animation and try to play this. And let's also set this to say 12 frames. So we have our coin. And then finally, let's do the same thing for our slime enemy. So again, we need to add the collision shape. So let's click on this and search for a collision shape 2D. And what I'm going to do is to click on the shape and do a circle shape. It's super large, so I'll just drag the circle shape to make sure that this player area can interact with the coin area. And now that we've done that, let's save our scene and we'll just call it coin and save it right here. And then finally, let's quickly run over the enemy scene. So next, I'm going to click this plus to add a new scene, and I'm going to click on other node, and I'll do an area 2D. And once I have that area 2D, I'm going to add an animated sprite 2D. So I'm going to do animated sprite 2D. Once I have that animated sprite 2D, I'm going to go over to the animation, click on the sprite frames, click new sprite frames, click on sprite frames, go over here to add frames from sheet, and I'll drop in the slime enemy. And I think this should be 1 by 4, like so. So I'll select all these frames and click on add frames, make this the default animation, play out the slime animation just to test it. And it's not really bad, but I'll just to make everything consistent. Okay, I think that's super fast. So I'll just set it to about 8 frames. And what we're going to do next is to add our collision shape. So I'll add this and say a collision shape 2D. We can use a polygon shape, but I'll just use a basic rectangle. And what I need to do is just drag this rectangle to make sure it's encompassing our art, like so. And finally, I'll just quickly save this scene, and I'm going to call that my sorry, before I do that, I just want to call this the slime, and hit enter. It actually helps when you create the name, because whenever you try to save the scene, it will just give you the same name but in lowercase. So I have my slime scene all set up, and the main reason why I'm setting this up like this is that in the main scene we can now begin to compose our game by dragging in our items. For instance, I can attach the player here, and what I can do is to just move the player down here. So now you can see we have our player, and then next let's instantiate the coin. So I have a coin so that the player can collide with the coin. Oops, I actually made a mistake. I want to select the main scene and then instantiate the coin as a child of the main scene. So I can just grab the coin and place it right here in front of the player. And then I can select the main scene and instantiate the enemy, the slime, click open. And now I'll just drag this slime enemy and drop the slime enemy right here. Now we actually notice these are, I'll just save everything. If we play this, now they are quite small. So what we can do is just increase their size. So if I go over here and go to the transform for the scale, I can set this to a 2 by 2, and our player is a bit large. Do the same thing from the coin, go to my transform, set the scale to 2 by 2. Sorry, my mouse keeps slipping up and falling. And then next I can go to the slime and set the slime to the transform and set the slime scale to 2 by 2 as well. And I'll just drag the slime a little bit. And what we can also do is to begin to duplicate this. So I can right click the coin and duplicate the coin. So I have another coin, and I can do the same thing for the slime and duplicate the slime so I can have another slime too. So I'm just going to go to duplicate and then drag the slime. So in our next lesson, we're going to start coding the functionality to see how we can connect everything with signals. Thank you very much for watching.